I think everyone, myself included, has been flabbergasted and baffled and puzzled by the enormous complexity of narcissistic disturbances of personality.
And I was thinking, my God, the narrative that we have online regarding narcissism is drifting from the latest academic research hugely.
Yes, divergence, complete divergence, I agree.
Total divergence, and there's this almost an agenda online to keep it biblical.
Johnny Fontana, Real World INFJ. Today's topic is the Delayed Onset Narcissistic Tendency. Let's go. Johnny Fontana, we're back. Before we get started, right? A couple of you emailed me and was wondering where have I been? Have I allowed the whole YouTube experience sort of like, take a hold of me, right? I just sort of allowed to overwhelm my senses and so forth. Well, short answer is no, right? But to explain, basically, I don't subscribe to the whole reclusive state because I'm being sort of overwhelmed or I feel suppressed, by the stresses of social media and so forth and so on. I mean, I do to a certain extent, but when it comes to videos and so forth and so on, it's not necessarily the case. The reason why is because I have been doing this for a while in terms of just even DJing, performing, in front of others. But the reason why I was away is just because of the fact that I didn't have any content, right? And to again elaborate on that, it's for me when it comes to these videos, especially on my other YouTube channel, which is a more electronic DJ type of channel, my content is derived from the social dynamic experience, right? So for me, I tend to see things on a deeper level, further than my counterparts, okay? As it pertains to my interests, okay? I'm not saying all topics, I'm saying to what I'm interested in, right? So when it comes to topics on social dynamics, when it comes to DJing and so forth and so on, it's not so much the technical aspect. Whereas most DJs, they want to see mixes and that. Even though I provide that, because that's the majority of them, that's what they want, I'm more in terms of the theory, understanding why certain things happen, right? Connecting the dots, giving you the bird's eye view, right? And then from there, connecting all the perspectives, right? So it's a combination of theory and application, right? But it's not all theory, it's not all application. It's just a nice combination. So for me, when I provide, my material, it takes a while, right? I have to sort of stew it, okay? Like even with this video, right? I've sort of been contemplating it for days on end, figuring out how I want to, introduce it. And so a lot of the information that I'm saying, I've already said in my mind. I've already, even I've recorded my voice, gone over some notes, whatever, created even the sound bites that I'm about to play for you now. Everything is already there, okay? Same thing with my DJ channel. If I'm going to do a mix, I've already prepared the music, right? I program it in my mind as I'm driving. I'm putting music together, and then I create the mix, and then from there I have to now, as I'm driving, I have the music. Now I'm visualizing what pictures and images and video am I gonna pair with the music. So a lot of that, just the visual aspect, goes into it. So if I don't have any content, I'm not going to just put it out just for the sake of putting it out. However, I do embrace and compliment those who do, who can have the capacity to put out content every day. That's good, that's great for them. I just don't, because it just takes a whole lot. And it's based on personal experiences that I can sort of now formulate into that real world INFJ perspective in order to provide perspective for others who identify with the INFJ personality. Let's finally get into this video about the whole narcissistic tendency, right? Which I call the delayed onset narcissistic tendency. Let me explain to you what happened. I recently experienced something that solidified my theory, okay, on narcissistic abuse, scapegoat, all that stuff, right? However, prior to that, I was doing some research, and that's probably one of the reasons why I was awake, because I was experiencing that, but it wasn't because I was sort of overwhelmed by the experience and I was just like shut down. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, some people, that's how different people experience certain things. I'm not undermining those who operate under those conditions. But for me, losing my freaking thought again. No, the thing for me is that I had questions because a lot of the stuff that I observed and I experienced aligned with the classic narcissistic traits. However, it did not come via the same pathway, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, so for example, like some of the end results were the same, but it wasn't from, like, I was blindsided, okay? So not only you have like covert and all that stuff, but it wasn't even covert, like it was another. So I started doing research, and I had like this 9% because I'm doing research on narcissistic tendencies, scapegoat, and so forth and so on. And a lot of the stuff is like, yeah, you know this and how to deal with it and gaslight it. And I'm like, yeah, you know how to again. But it's from those who I was receiving it from, how it was coming. It was just like, no, it's not aligning. It doesn't make sense to me. So there's that 9%, which is something that I came up with recently, just where I started to feel something. Then I started doing research. But that research, again, during my recharge time, it takes a lot. It's not just, oh, I'm just going to get in and just do research and find out. Because a lot of the research that I was doing initially was through an echo chamber, right, where everyone was saying the same thing. Oh, like narcissists are evil, narcissists that they think highly of themselves and they don't care about people, they don't have any empathy, whatever like that. And I'm like, the results, the actions reflect what they're saying, but the personalities don't. So it's just so I'm like, so I started researching children of narcissistic parents. What's this, whatever like that. And yeah, like you got the same, narcissists supplying money and this, that, and the third, and keeping them, sheltered and stuff like that. Yeah, it's right there, whatever. But then the responses and the actions of the children, like, oh, it was different. Like it was met differently. Not in a covert, there was no conscious effort, to sort of like act in any certain way or what have you. So that for me, it was just threw me off a lot until I found a few videos. Again, certain videos were able to solidify some of the explanations as far as like family intervening and not really understanding the bigger picture and not understanding your side, and basically trying to have you, forgive and forget. And also when you now attempt to explain and sort of rebel against, the scapegoating and all the abuse, your rebel is met with like overwhelming backlash from them. It's like, yeah, I get it, totally, like that's it, man. But again, from the individuals, it's like, doesn't make sense because those aren't the calculating types. Because, and then we'll go into it, and it doesn't make sense until I met two more people who now had a discussion, and which will go into this, which would then made me understand that yes, there are other forms of, not wouldn't say other forms, because I believe that there's narcissism is narcissism. However, there are different dynamics, there are different, you know what I'm saying to you? Because it doesn't come in all form, because I think it's very complex, which we'll go into here.
Specifically, if you're the scapegoat, if you're the one that the lies are being laid upon. You're sitting back at the early stages of this and going, what the hell's going on?
So let me give you basically just a brief overview. Every time I try to do this, like literally, like I recorded my video yesterday, the day before, and it always came up to be like an hour long. We're going to keep it very short. Now, the thing about it is that I grew up in a household with my stepmother and my father. Prior to that, I was living with my grandmother, okay? My father, my biological father, and my biological mother had me, but they separated while in college after having me. Then from there, they went on to marry and have their own children. So I only have half siblings. I don't have any step siblings because my step parents didn't have any children of their own coming into the relationship with my biological parents. So I then went on to move in with my father and my stepmother. Okay, well-to-do. My father worked at the UN. He basically was he had a French citizenship, and he was born in Haiti but grew up in West Africa and France and so forth and so on. However, he did grow up in a step-parenting abusive household, okay, by where he was sort of like forced to, urinate and dig holes on the outside, right? Especially in West Africa, in order to use the bathroom, because he wasn't allowed to use the bathroom indoors, okay, as per the stepmother. And so growing up like that, he sort of didn't or doesn't display any affection, okay? And then my grandfather, his father, biological father, sort of turned an eye to that, right? So he didn't want to confront that. So again, he's always told us growing up, hey, I don't have affection. That's why I'm cold. That's why I'm this, why I'm that, whatever. At the time, I didn't understand. I was like, why is that so cold? Why is it like this? Whatever. Always asking questions, okay? Especially us as the intuitive type, the younger. Then you're like, oh, why is it like this? Why is it like that? Why is it like that? But then now you understand based on, my stepmother, on the hand, also Caribbean. But the thing about her, though, is that she's a doctor, OBGYN, but her mother, according to my research that I've done, is a full-blown narcissist. Like that typical, evil, like horrible, just wretched personality, right? Like really horrible. Then her traits were passed on to my stepmother, just basically just herself is a very volatile person, has a very volatile personality. She'll go into the bank and for whatever reason something will come up and it's like, oh, I don't understand this. How is it that you don't have this? Let me speak to the supervisor. You're not the supervisor. I am Dr. such and such, whatever. Again, listen, I grew up in that household, but I experienced it all. So there was a lot of tension, even she sometimes, just the way she treats people. Like we'd go out to restaurants, okay, not with my father around, but alone, and she'd, let's say, have someone speak Spanish, like a waitress. How dare you speak Spanish, English, please? Just very condescending, very just awful to people, right? But fortunately, my father basically, he had, he was like the head of the household, okay? So he had a bigger personality than she. So basically, he put a stop to a lot of her antics and volatile personality. My father was very volatile himself as well, yelling, screaming, very impatient. So we grew up in this very household of everyone just walking on eggshells. As soon as you'd hear the garage door, everyone would scatter, as they were coming home. So very tense atmosphere, right? So I think that now contributed to a lot of the psychological conditions that some of us, experience, especially my other siblings. So let me now cut to the chase. So now you have an idea. But the bottom line is that I can't really say that I grew up in a bad household. I can't really say that. The only thing is that, again, I'm speaking in high context, so I hope now I'm reverting to high context so that you can actually grasp and understand certain perspectives without me having to sort of deliberately give all the information. A lot of the stuff that happened, okay, I always chalked it up to just the whole stepmother, experience. And that even, when my grandmother was alive and my stepmother would come pick me up from my grandmother's house so I can go, spend some time with my father and her at their house prior to, they would always say, hey, be careful, she's a stepmother, she doesn't love you, like always doing that, always whatever. So a lot of the times I would go back, and say, hey, this is what she did, and so forth and so on. And as I grew up, it always, I always just took it as, hey, listen, it's just whatever, it's just growing up in that household, sibling rivalry and so forth and so on. Okay, I know I'm being long-winded, but I have to give you this perspective. My father always told her, again, as being the head of the household, he said, listen, even before she had her children, with my father, he basically said, hey, Johnny's a package deal, he comes with me, so treat him as if he was your own. So growing up with my younger siblings, whom were 5, the first one was 5, the eldest, middle was 7, and 9. Okay, so basically years apart from me. Okay, so basically when I was 11, okay, my youngest sister was 1, the other one was 3, and the other one was 5. Okay, so I would see certain things, I would experience certain things. I would always want to know, why is Dad like this? Why are we feeling this? Why am I feeling that? Again, as the INFJ intuitive type. But again, I would try to talk to them because there was no one else that I could speak to, and they would not go back to their mother and father, whatever. And then my stepmother would, put stuff in their ear. Oh, that's Johnny's fuel in the fire. Don't listen to him, again. But I always chalked it up just me being the eldest. I have to basically eat the dirt, whatever like that, because I'm the eldest. I'm responsible, whatever like that. So it was always like that. It was always like I felt separated in a way. Right, but I didn't. But it's because at the same time I got everything that I wanted. But I think it was because of my father applying that pressure, and also because we had so much family that there was no way for her to apply so much pressure. But after an incident occurred, where we all found out that my father was having an affair, he had another child, whatever, while living in Florida. They separated, so now she was able to now apply that pressure, and then she stopped basically dealing with my father's side of the family. And because I look so much like my father, again, even though she did accept me because I'm her children's, brother, but again, So, as a result of everything to explode and whatever, there was a whole lot of he said, she said, Johnny said this, Johnny said that, whatever. And a lot of it stemmed from when I went to Florida, okay? After I left the military, I went to Florida, and so they would come down to Florida to stay at my parents' yacht club, okay? And so they basically were, they would come down with their friends, whatever, and then sometimes they wouldn't even say that, say hi, or even call and say whatever, that they were around. And for me, I got offended, because sometimes my father would hang out with them, whatever, because I felt, sort of jealous. I was like, all right, why am my father hanging out with them? They're going to football games and not me, whatever. But again, I was holding the secret of knowing my father's situation because, again, I was older. I was in my mid-20s. They were just getting out of college, finishing high school. So they basically were separated. So I guess we now that I think about it, we were sort of estranged, we were different, basically I had been away from them for 7 years, especially throughout their crucial years. So they were basically getting to know me like I'm someone new, whatever. At the same time, I know my father didn't, because of who I was, very, awkward, whatever. He didn't want us to be together because he didn't want the secret to be, Again, at the time I didn't really get it because I was like, why, whatever. But now I'm older, I understand because it's kind of difficult, whatever. So I think a lot of that stuff sort of contributed to where we are and how we are now today. This whole pitting, and Johnny said that, whatever, because, again, my father did some of that pitting because he was trying to save face and so forth and so on. So, but again, we never had any weird relationships, whatever, but there was a lot of just Johnny said this, Johnny said that, whatever like that. That just created an awkward situation. However, I always felt welcomed by my siblings. Again, my stepmother always got that weird feeling. Again, you know how you get the weird feeling, the weird vibe from her, whatever like that, just because of who she is. But again, she couldn't apply that pressure because for me, at 19, I left the house. So my siblings, they remained under her umbrella, right? So basically, even now, it's like they live in the same house because my father's gone. So they basically live in a house with her. She basically keeps them, you know. My middle brother, call him C. He basically works with her in her clinic. So basically, she pays his salary. She also paid the salary of his wife. You know, my sister just recently got a job. She's in her 30s. She just graduated, you know, nursing, and now she just got a job. So again, just very. Even to now, we still refer to them as kids, you know, basically very sheltered, you know. I know I'm being long-winded, guys, but it's very important that you understand, okay, because it's going to prepare you for what's coming next, okay. It's very important. So just bear with me. If you need to pause, have a drink, whatever, but it's very important. I'm telling you, you're not going to get this anywhere. Listen, I've gone there. So, INFJ perspective, remember that. And I'm not losing my thought. We're trucking. I just lost my thought. I need to stop doing that. But anyway, we're gonna go. So basically, I just found that I had a good relationship with them for the most part, right? Especially the siblings. However, when I would go to the house, because of my stepmother being, you know, like the overall, you know, guide. Like let's say, like if my car was in the shop, whatever, and I needed to use my sister's, you know, car, whatever, my stepmother would intervene, even though she was in her 20s. Intervene. Hey, you know, she needs to use this for her college, whatever, this, that, and third, whatever. Just always just sheltering them, right? So now, basically, it's so hard, like not to like say certain things because you're not gonna get it. Basically, it's just throughout the years, just me and the middle brother, see, we just never got along. Okay, he was very defensive. Every time, you know, I guess when we first started, you know, in Florida, he would sort of get defensive at some of my approaches, right? So let's say we would hang out, and we were supposed to hang out later on in the evening, but he never showed up, and I would ask questions, why didn't you? Some, you know, act like maybe like a brother, older brother. He would get defensive, you know, like as if like, you know.
In the early stages, you're going to notice from your sibling a coldness. And that leads into lack of empathy. Slight digs turning into deeper digs.
So there was a thing of like people would do certain things, like come down to Florida, not say anything, but when I would confront them with it, they would get defensive about it. Again, that delayed onset narcissistic tendency of like you're doing things, you're not realizing you're doing it. It's not really conscious. It is conscious, but then it's like you're doing it because, again, I'm chalking it up to the fact that we were estranged. We weren't, you know, really used to each other. So we had to sort of regain that sort of familiarity and so forth and so on. But that middle brother, he basically was just very different. But again, as we grew, you know, in age, you know, this is when I was in mid-20s, you know, 10 years down the line, again, our relationships weren't bad. Like, we never had blowout fights. We never had, it's just, we would see each other, we would, hey, whatever. But then we would go, we would never call each other, me and my brother. But then my other ones, our relationships got better, me and the eldest brother and my younger sister. Very fond of my children, you know, all the time, you know, when I was supposed to go, let's say for Christmas somewhere else, because I felt that since the family is broken up, I didn't want to, you know, go to the house, because my stepmother, what she would do, she would actually cook, right? So for Christmas, she would cook a meal, and then she would leave that day to go spend with her boyfriend. Again, because remember, she separated from my father after everything blew up. They found out he was having an affair. But I was like, for me, that was like weird. Like, I couldn't go into the house where it's like, okay. But again, that whole sheltering thing, because everyone lived in the house, everyone, whatever. So that whole nostalgic thing of like, oh, let's be together, whatever. But it's a broken house. Sorry, broken household. But my sister would be like, hey, come, we went to family, whatever. So again, that strange dysfunctional dilemma. So here we come now to the end. Again, a lot of these incidents would happen, like where, let's say, like, 2 Christmases ago, my brother had invited, my sister over for dinner at his house. Okay, now I was supposed to come that night. I was living in Virginia, going to Jersey, and my sister says, "Hey, I'll leave the key under the mat for you, okay, as you come down." And I said, "For what?" Because I'm thinking she's gonna be there at night, because I would leave, normally me and the family, we would leave, on Friday around like 7, and then get there around 10, 11, depending on traffic. It's just as because I'm going to overseas house for dinner. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I didn't get no invitation. Oh, well, I guess he didn't invite you. So again, like, for me, I was like, okay, so I got upset. I was like, "Well, then don't worry, I'll come tomorrow morning." And I was like, "Listen, like, we're in a situation now where we're adults now. He's married. You're about to get married at the time, Well, yeah, she was married. We can't have these things now where you want to have your little, double dating, family dinner at his house, but then Christmas Eve, we have a broken family and we're not inviting each other over. Like, even if I'm going to come late, but at least give that courtesy, I was like, "Hey, whatever." So but again, like, I'd always tell him for the past 5 years, I always tell my oldest sibling and the younger sister, I would say, "Hey, listen, again, mind you, right now they're in their 30s. So right now, 35, 32, or 33 and 30,
Your sibling will not flat out say, "Hey, look, this is what I was told. We need to talk about this." The narcissist's work is so deep and so sharp that the sibling cannot even speak about what they're upset about.
Yeah, so I feel a certain way, and but they always say, "Hey, I don't see it, I don't get it, whatever." Like, just different incidents that occurred, which I don't need to go into, but they would always say, "Hey, I don't see it, whatever." So finally, that Christmas, basically, we had a situation where, again, I talked to them about, other incidents, and I said, "You know what, I'm not even going to bring it up to see, because every time I bring up with him certain situation, is like, oh, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have the conversation. This is not the right time." So again, it's like you start to realize that there's a sense of avoidance, because again, they've been sheltered all their lives, even though they're married, they're in their 30s. They don't know how to overcome challenges. They don't know how to discuss issues, because again, they haven't really left and lived beyond their little circle, the circle of friends. Everyone lives in the same town, even though, yeah, they go out, whatever. But again, it's like they lead sheltered lives, as opposed to someone like me, who I sort of left that sort of bubble and was able to sort of like move away and explore and face different difficulties, what I'm saying, like on my own, and have to buy my own house and have my cars repossessed and have my home foreclosed upon, and have different jobs, have different careers, where they've never had to experience that. Like, my sister just got her first job as a nurse, her real job. She never had one before. She was basically going to school and doing whatever, working for, for my mom's, friend's clinic or whatever like that. So, and my other brother, he's sick, so he's unable to work. And the youngest brother, he works with my stepmother, so they've never had real, lives other than that sort of family, whatever. So I confronted him regarding the situation during that Christmas, and he was like, "Oh, well, I didn't know you were coming down." Again, it's like, well, then that means that my sister didn't let you know. It's like,
The golden child is very much aware of this. However, they've been conditioned, and they chose at a certain point in their life to do wrong instead of doing right. And if that means gang jumping on you, the scapegoat, they're going to join in on the fun crowd.
You know what I'm saying? So this whole thing of like, again, I would come down, or you guys would come, back in the day, you would go to Florida, you wouldn't say anything. But now again, same thing where you're doing things. Okay, mind you, I know I'm weird. I know I can be sort of imposing. Sometimes I can solicit certain things. I can be deep, I can be analytical, and not everyone wants to be around that. I get it. That's why I've had to curb a lot of my approaches, right? That's why my father in the past has said, hey, he doesn't like hanging around with me because I'm so intense. I'm like an interrogator, always asking questions, always trying to think, always overthinking, over just intense, whatever. So I've had to learn to overcome that. So I guess I get it, yeah, So we're coming home now, because I know this is a lot, but it's very important that you hear this information. And I hope this is giving you some background and perspective, because it's very important with regards to the sound bites that I'm gonna play for you now. So that night I decided, you know what? Because it was like a blowout, not a blowout, but something where I decided, you know what? I no longer feel welcome in his home. So now I'm going to pursue my dreams, because the reason why I moved from Florida to Virginia, not only because of the economy, but also because I wanted to be closer to them, because of my children. I thought it was easier, because again, I didn't really feel that I grew up in a bad household. We were very family oriented. They were fond of my children. We would go to the birthdays, do this, do that, whatever, for Christmas. So, and every time we had Christmas, oh man, it's such a great time together. We would wake up, have Sunday brunch together in the house, so I never felt whatever. We would always have quite, conversations about, my stepmother, their mother, and our father. So we would always have these bonding conversations, except minus C, because he actually moved out to live with his wife. But again, so our relationships gotten closer. So I never felt anything. But here, I'm coming home now. Now you're going to start to understand me. So again, it's a delayed onset. And you'll understand what I mean by the delayed onset narcissistic tendency.
The narcissist doesn't do this in just one clean swipe. They're training. They're grooming your sibling. Little by little, creating that hatred, boom.
So I decided that I'm not going to resist taking out any opportunities to further my career, right? Because a lot of all the time, even my sister would say, oh, I hope you don't move, because then I still want to see my niece and my nephew and all that stuff, because they're always giving them gifts, especially expensive gifts for Christmas and so forth and so on. So I decided at this point in time, I don't want to keep myself back. I want to pursue my dreams, so I'm going to move. And I knew it was going to hurt, but I said at this time, whatever the incident that occurred for Christmas Eve, I don't feel welcomed. And you guys didn't have my back. The reason why is I feel that is because, again, I've always been separate. They've always been in that sort of cluster that you know what I'm saying? So I've always been a scapegoat. I've always been the one easy for to say, hey, yeah, Johnny said that. Always can use me.
Triangulation. This is done for the supply for the narcissist. Many times, more than not, this will lead to a separation between you and the sibling.
So, but then they said, oh yeah, now we realize, what you're saying about UNC, how we never knew it coming, or saw it coming. What are you talking about? Like, I've been telling you this and expressing this to you for so long, and not only that, you've always told me how he blows up and how, he's a hard person to figure out, that he doesn't even call sometimes now that he's moved with his wife, whatever, that, it takes like a miracle for you to get him, whatever, with you guys. So you guys couldn't put two and two together, especially when I've expressed my stuff. But anyway, so this was in December. In June of 2017, I finally called him. Again, I was, conversing with my brother via text, but it took a while, right? Before, we got back, in touch. But again, there was no like, hey, going back to figure out what happened, it was just, this didn't happen. And I was upset at them for not blowing up. But again, I don't like to keep tension, so I didn't make a big deal out of it. And it just rolled. I'm one of those people, things happen. I hate tension, so I pretend as if nothing happened. I might be the first person to say sorry. So, hey, listen, as long as it can just be over with, it's over with. So that June, me and my older brother, we were conversing, and I called him and I said, listen, I'm moving to Vegas. My sister happened to be there, and my brother, the middle brother, happened to be there as well. And I pretended as if nothing happened. He actually ended up moving into a new house, which was given to him by his wife's parents. Again, something that I'll explain to you coming up. Very important. But I made no, I was like, hey, everything's cool, everything's fine. I didn't even mention anything about the incident, whatever. But I could tell when they were, because they had me on speakerphone, because I had called my brother, and my sister happened to be there, and then my other brother, he came. He just happened to be there because, again, they were moving, but they're moving literally less than a mile away. So they're still, okay, now he's closer now to the household, because my sister and my older brother live in the house with my stepmother, and now my middle brother, he's now moving to a house less than a mile away. So now they're still going to be all close now. So now he gets on the phone, but you could tell right before that there was a little bit of because again of what transpired that Christmas Eve. But again, it's been 7 months since we hadn't spoken. But I made, hey, what's going on? Hey, congratulations. Hey, I'm moving to Vegas. Hey, we're all making, and my sister, I just found out that my sister had just graduated again, from nursing school. So, hey, everyone is, we're all doing well, great. So, here's the thing now. I move. Prior to me leaving, I went over to the house. My family said goodbyes. Hey, I do what I need to do. I don't just, skip town. Went over there, said the final goodbyes, especially on behalf of my children. Hey, whatever. Didn't bring anything up. Everything was perfect. We acted, we saw the fireworks. We acted as if nothing ever happened. We cried, then we left. My sister also mentioned during that phone call prior to me going there in July. This was in June when we had the phone call, so we set it up for July. She had mentioned, hey, I'm going over to Vegas for Bachelorette. Again, I told you before, there are a lot of coincidences that happen in my life. Remember I told you about there's a lot of coincidences that occur. But small coincidences. So I said, oh, really cool. So again, while I'm here, I drove 2,300 miles from Maryland to Vegas, Virginia, Northern Virginia, Maryland area, DC area to Vegas. So this is October now. But prior to that, my wife had been on the phone with my sister. And basically asked her, my daughter was on speaker. She had my daughter on speaker. My daughter, which they're very fond of each other, her aunt and whatever, always asking about her, always, providing gifts, like I said before, great relationship. She asked her, hey, are you still coming down to Vegas? She avoided answering that somehow. But my wife picked up on that, but didn't even pressure. Because she had just gotten a new job. So even for me, I didn't want to pressure her, because for me, I don't like that pressure. My mom gives me all that pressure all the time. Whenever I go to her house, as soon as I get there, hey, you're here. When are you coming back again? I'm like, Mom, I'm just here. Like, enjoy it, Or if I call her all the time, she's like, oh, I haven't heard you in such a long time, because I'm not great with phone calls, Always, so I don't do that to other people, so I don't do that to her. But I knew she was coming. I was hoping she would come anyway. So anyway, that October, that Sunday, the Las Vegas shooting occurred, right? That Monday morning, I get a call from my father. Hey, is everything all right? Just wanted to make sure, because I know you're a night owl, you're a DJ. Wanted to make sure everything was okay. Boom, because you're in Vegas. By the way, did your sister call you? I'm like, no, why? Well, yeah, apparently she was at the casino cashing her winnings, and some guy randomly just pulled her. It's like, hey, we gotta go, because the shooting had erupted. She fell and she hurt herself. She said, yeah, she said she would call you later. I'm like, oh, really? You realize that I was literally 3 blocks away having dinner with my family. Another coincidence when that incident occurred. But the reason how my father found out is because he had woken up to a bunch of missed calls from my brother, who was in Jersey. Explaining to him the situation. Who, my brother, got the call from my sister, who was in Vegas. But yet I was 3 blocks away, and I didn't get a call at all from no one. Now I don't think you're getting the picture yet, though. You're not getting it. Wait. So now it's getting more intense. This is gonna get good. My brother, I was like, you know what? I'm upset. Because my siblings on my mother's side called me, my mother called me, and even my sibling from my father's, my new one that I had just recently found out about, he called me to verify, hey, is everything okay? But my brother, my middle brother, they didn't call. Why they didn't call? Because she arrived home that night, that Monday. My brother called me the following day, that Tuesday. Why? Because they had, you guessed it, they had to wait until she arrived home that night. Why? Because had he called me that day, we would have had discussed the fact that she was there. So everyone colluded. She basically put everyone in a position, you can't call John because Johnny doesn't know that I'm here in Vegas. So, in my eyes, I'm like, you guys used to do all of this stuff in Florida. Pin me, say my name, say I'd said this, whatever, say that I was jealous about, our father's car. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? All this kind of stuff. I always had these weird feelings going back to the house. Even my wife experienced the same thing. Even that video with me and my wife that you've watched, the incident where she says that we made an effort, whatever, we made physical efforts, that's what we're referring to.
However, we work, we do. We talk it out, we bring the subjects up, you. Bring subjects up, we work on it. Seems like the other side understood and acknowledged, yes. Okay, so now we're in a different world. You said you understood, I understood. So now INFJ assumes they are in a different space. So if the space was over here, now we move to the middle, closer to each other. Now we're in here. Now it's new reality. But now that side turns into their old ways. And that's something that is old in this new space. And now they effed it up. Now they effed it up because all the energy, the feelings, and the physical investment, because we made physical effort, physical investment, and we let so many things go for the greater good, right? Now, when we think that the world is perfect, that all our work and effort has paid off, good old bullshit happens again. So that's when we are like, this is now pure disrespect. This is not me trying to figure out or understand where you come from. This is not me trying to give you benefit of a doubt, because that supposedly is all figured out already. That world is figured out. Now we're in this world over here. When that old stuff now enters our new world, now it's like, are you kidding me? So now INFJs understand that as pure disrespect.
Now you know the real story. So I'm like, I've experienced all of this. I've always been the one to say, I'm sorry, I'm done, whatever like that. Drove 2,300 miles away from that crap. I'm feeling good. Now that demon follows me. You used to do that in Florida. No one has ever come to Vegas before. No one has ever come to Vegas before. Now that I'm here, you want to come to Vegas. And you want to pull that same stunt you used to do back when you were in college. You're 30 years old, you're married. What business are you having to do these kind of things? But again, it's not calculated. And I know some of you thinking, oh, it's got to be. No. So I said, I'm done. I closed the book on everyone. Slammed the door. That was my door slam. I blocked my numbers. I took my wife's phone. I blocked it. Block all their numbers. I'm getting now text messages or WhatsApp from my uncle. So my uncle spends some time with my other brother who's sick. Helps him go to dialysis and so forth and so on. So they're close. Text me, hey, long email. Don't have a black hole in your heart. You know, you don't want to do things that you'll regret, blah, 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 blah. Not once are you asking me, how are you coping with this? How are you doing? I'm not expecting it, but not once. Everything is, don't hold grudges, don't do this, whatever. Not even, hey, what happened? Oh, you know, your sister, she's sorry. You cannot hold a grudge on one mistake. My response was like, hey, it's more than that. It's years and years and years. To the point where I actually created a video. And that's where the whole backlash thing comes in. I created a video, put it on private, and went from beginning to end and provided my perspective. Didn't point any fingers, wasn't like, hey, you know, you're that fault, you're this. No, I said, as a matter of fact, a lot of the content was, hey, I could understand why my father was pitting people because he was saving face. I could understand why they, you know, were saying that I said this and said that and thought I was weird, whatever like that, because I was weird, I was intense, I was estranged. I could understand where, you know, me going out and helping my brother-in-law, you know, who was engaged to my sister. I can understand me going out and helping him, you know, try to find a job, you know, and giving them support and saying, hey, you know, let's go to the mall, you know, let's go pick up some applications, whatever like that, sitting you down because you don't have a job. I can understand how after I left, you go and tell my father, oh, we don't appreciate how Johnny did that, and not even be, you know, come up, you're 28 and not even come up to me and I don't appreciate it. Me, I set you down as a man to man, but like, hey, I'm here for you. I've been through all this, whatever. And the next thing you know, I'm being told that, oh, we don't like the way that Johnny handled it and whatever, instead of coming to me directly. But I chalk it up to, hey, you know, they're precious, you know, they're very, you know, they're fragile. So, you know, maybe you shouldn't do that. And maybe I impose myself. I shouldn't do that. So in that video, I expressed that and says, hey, you know, my bad. You know, I got everything. I said, I'm weird. I said, even this video that I'm doing, even the INFJ videos, I think that's weird for me to do. Fine, I expressed that. Then my sister now texts. I guess I didn't block her number, so she texts my wife. Again, why is Johnny holding grudges? Da, 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 da. And that's when I put out the perspective video. Then my wife got a call from my sister-in-law, my brother, the one that I told you we don't have, you know, that relationship, whatever. Even though we left, everything was cool, whatever like that. She's blasting my wife, saying, oh, how could you guys make that video, you know, throughout the whole world? It's on private anyway. Johnny, he's weird, you know, he's always been weird. This is my sister-in-law, mind you. This is why we had to put up with him all these years. And you can't believe you're standing by him. I thought you were different. Again, that classic after research, that classic narcissist of trying to pull everyone, you know what I'm saying, whatever, like just you, nothing having to do with holding accountability. So my wife was like, "Oh, your husband, he's weird too. Him and Johnny don't speak. They never have a conversation." Oh, I didn't know that they weren't on the speaking terms. Surprise, surprise. You know whose phone she used to call my wife? You guessed it, my brother's phone. So which means that my brother allowed, even if he didn't allow, the fact that she felt that she could use his phone to call my wife and blast her. And the fact that he allowed it. Of course he allowed it. Because listen, so you're saying that you don't accept the fact that my wife stood by me when I was making this video? So which means that for me to now say that my brother didn't have any kind of knowing or understanding, or he wasn't aware that you used his phone to call my wife and blast her? I mean, this is what I'm saying to you. Again, it's you point fingers, but you don't account for anything. So now, we're coming home now. We're coming home. My sister now emails me after she had spoken to my father. But here's now where, again, it gets crazy. I didn't expect that from my sister-in-law. Okay, whatever. But again, like I said before, I never felt that I had any kind of weird situation, or I never had any blow-ups, any like we never cursed, never yelled, like how siblings have conversations and they yell at each other. I never had that. The common relationship of like being mad at each other and cursing each other out, never cursed out my siblings. Never had raised voice conversations, blowout conversations, walking out, leave me alone and get out. Never had that with them. Never had that with them. Yeah, the whole pitting and this, that, and the third, I would just not call or not speak, but then we would come back and, you know, if I would find out something, or because a lot of the times the whole pitting was my father telling me that that's what he heard from them. So it wasn't them, again, because they never confronted anyone. That's why my father, he told me about his affair because he knew that I was going to ask, but they never asked questions. They would have found out if they asked, because there's a lot of signs, but they just never asked. No one wanted to confront anything. That's how they are. They don't confront. They don't, because they want to avoid everything, you know? Because again, they're sheltered children. They don't know how to. That's why my brother, always defensive, never wants to have it. Oh, this is not the right time. I don't want to have this discussion. So my father tells my sister, hey, you know, Johnny's upset because you didn't call him. Her response was, oh, I've gone through, you know, an experience with that incident. I don't have time for any insensitivities. And I'm like I didn't react like that over the phone, but in my mind, actually I got upset. I was like, oh, this is the real deal. This is the real deal now. Because I was like wondering, like, what the heck? Like, why was she doing that? Like, how could she do that? But that response threw me off. Because I'm like, that's my baby sister. Never have we had any kind of awkward situation like that. Like, I literally did not see that coming. Because, listen, I'm honest with you. Everything I tell you, I'm honest. I don't blow things out of proportion. If we had incidents where we didn't talk and we had blowouts, of course, I get it. But she's never, ever said anything like that. Ever. That's what blew me off. I was like, yo, kidding me?
There comes a time where the golden child knows right from wrong. However, they've picked up so many of the traits of the narcissist. Those survival skills have turned into mutant cells where they think that they are entitled to this, where they think that's the only way to survive, where they there comes a time where they start to actually see, feel, and think that your pain gives them pleasure. This is where the golden child generally turns into a narcissist themselves.
So, she emailed me for my birthday, right? In October. This was after the incident, but I didn't respond. So after that incident she had with my father, she sent it back. So I emailed it, and I said, hey, responded, I love you too, but this is not personal. I said, hey, maybe we can come back, whatever. But I said, for now, I feel good. I'm in a better space. I've done this because this is my self-healing. Because everyone else, they've gone to therapy, especially when my father, revealed that he was, had an affair and he was living in had a whole other family. Everyone on that side, my brothers, they went to counseling and whatever. I've always been the one to, self-medicate. I was in the military. I was in the Marine Corps. I was in countries on my own. I've had to deal with things on my own. I've never gone to seek counseling, whatever. Not that I'm such a strong person. It's just, I just never went, okay? Because I didn't have that guidance. I was on my own. Whereas they went. So, she emails me, and I responded, hey, it's just whatever. I said, love you too, but here's my perspective. Here's the video.
And when you become aware of this, when you start to realize what's going on, you desperately want to speak or show that sibling, look, here is our problems. Let's talk about this.
I didn't point to the figures. It was just simply, basically, me just giving my perspective. So they should, take it well. A couple of days later, she responds with, I'm still trying to take this all in, this video. You made it seem as if it was all our fault. I'm like, what? That's her first sentence. First of all, even in this video here, I've revealed certain things and acknowledged certain things about me that I've had in the past. That even by listening to this conversation, you can be like, yeah, obviously, if he can reveal and be honest about certain things in this video, he definitely had to be honest about other things in the other video, because it just only makes sense, right?
No matter how hard you try to explain, once you figured it out, what's really going on, that sibling, it's done. The feelings and the deep, deep hatred are so deep, it's almost impossible to penetrate.
Her next sentence was, and your partner, I can't believe how she stood there agreeing with everything you said. That's when I stopped reading. I responded, hey, you know what? What's done, it's done. It's wrapped. Please don't contact me ever again. But in my mind, I was feeling like numb.
I've seen clearly where the golden child has turned to a narcissist and has become this lethal, empty shell of a human inside themselves. This is a learned condition that comes to a crossroad that can be either yay or nay. They can go one way or another. And unfortunately, they very well may choose the horrible direction where it harms you.
I was like, where the F is this coming from?
Because here's someone that you loved and that you believed loved you unconditionally. But they very well may be lost. If we use the energy to try to educate a sibling, We are feeding the narcissist their supply. We are using all of that energy and not focusing on getting better or healthier ourselves.
It's very tough on me. Tough. It's not easy for me. Like and the only reason why I get triggered is when they start. But when they're not, I'm not triggered by it. But when they start with the, hey, you need to stop holding grudges, whatever. No one has ever asked me, how you doing? It's why are you holding grudges? Why are you doing things that you may later regret? You see what I'm saying to you? So, having my father a conversation again, it's kind of hard having a conversation with my father. But again, it's easy because he's going through the same thing. Same thing, where he's actually, it's I'm not going to go into that, it's just so much. But again, just trust me when I say he's going through the same thing. So you would think, oh, well, how come your father didn't intervene and something like that? Because he can't, because he's going through the same thing. He doesn't even have a conversation with the one who I don't have a conversation, he doesn't have a conversation with him because he refuses to have a conversation with him. And his wife, my brother C's, has refused to allow my father to see his children or even interact with their children. So my brother has given all reins to his wife. And that's one of the problems too. The whole classic narcissism, when you come from a narcissistic parent, you now attach yourself to another narcissist, right? Because my brother, again, he just moved out when he was in his late 20s, okay, just moved out. Still being paid by the mother, works with her. Now moves literally less than a mile away from them. She still pays, a lot of the stuff. He's living in a home that was given to him by his wife's family, so he doesn't have to pay anything. So, who's in charge? Like, who's really, you see what I'm saying to you? So, again, and he allowed his wife to use his phone to call my wife and blast her. But yet he doesn't have a conversation with my father. So my father can't intervene. My father's like, hey, I'm living my life. Because even he's had problems with everyone. Again, he created that situation. But again, he said, hey, I explained everything. And it's to the point where they've gotten back to each other. We went for 2 Christmases ago, or Thanksgiving, whatever like that. We all hung out, whatever, and cried, whatever. And whenever we leave, my father, he stays the same because I've had the best relationship that I've had with my father in my whole entire life. And my father always says, hey, I appreciate the fact that I keep my children in his life. I'm always sending him WhatsApp videos and all that stuff. But he doesn't get that from them. He's like, I don't understand them. Again, the mother, the narcissistic parent, keeps them here and doesn't allow them to have anything to do with them. Same thing with my sister-in-law. Doesn't allow anything. You see what I'm saying to you? Like that. So now we're going to get into the soundbite. And you're going to understand. I know it's been long, but if you're here, you're the truth. If you're still here, you're the truth. It's video, so you can stop it and come back to it anytime. But it's very important, though. So I'm going to play for you, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, he's totally right. He's totally right. Let's get into the soundbite. Ready? Let's go.
Where I first started wondering about that was I listened to the narrative on the forums and listened to my clients talking, and I got the impression of this sort of alpha male, handsome man in a red sports car driving around, having sex with women and then abandoning them as the ultimate sort of idea of a narcissist. And I thought, this sounds like a 2D cardboard cutout. It sounds like a concept. It doesn't sound like a real person to me. You told me the other day, you told me about a psychological concept called the alloplastic defense. Does that represent an alloplastic defense that I couldn't have been just ripped off by some silly girl who was a bit of a con artist, a very average, everyday, daft girl? I must have been ripped off by a girl who had demonic supernatural powers. Does that represent an alloplastic defense? Again,
for me, it's like you go on these forums and it's like, oh man, like narcissism, evil person. They are, they're all about themselves. They have no empathy. They don't care about other people. You can't just be an average person who is loving, who loves your children. But again, why would she? Even for this past Christmas, even though we haven't spoken, she sent my children $100 gifts each. Narcissistic supply, perhaps? I don't know. But one of the things that my sister-in-law had mentioned, oh, we sent your children gifts for Christmas and that, and now you want to shut the door on us. Classic. But again, it's very difficult because, again, like I said before, based on what I've said, because you can't tell me, oh, they're very immature, but at the same time say, oh, they're very cunning, they're very strategic, they're very calculated. It's, come on. Like, you know what I'm saying to you? No, you cannot do that. You cannot be like, oh, well, they don't have the wherewithal because they're immature, because they've been sheltered. But yet, they've been so courageously calculated to know that when upon this... Like, stop it. Because I'm going to hold you accountable for it. I'm going to make you look me in the eye and tell me, are you going to talk out of both sides of your mouth? No, let's keep going.
So the whole model by which we've been using, looking at the subject, could be completely faulty then?
I think everyone, myself included, has been flabbergasted and baffled and puzzled by the enormous complexity of narcissistic disturbances of personality.
Yeah.
And the reason narcissism, pathological narcissism, and by the way, healthy narcissism, the reason narcissism in general is such a complex phenomenon is because it underlies all other mental health mechanisms and even, I would say, disorders.
Okay? Remember I told you, they've all had to undergo therapy. Again, being in that household, because my father is no longer there to provide that guidance, to say, hey, you, woman, stop. Because sometimes she would explode, like just all over the place. You'd go whatever. My father always kept her at bay. But again, I left. So I went on to be exposed to normal people. But they stayed. That's why my sister can't even drive over the George Washington Bridge into New York City. Because she has a fear. She had to go see counseling for that. My other brothers, they've gone through different counseling, psychological, whatever. Especially having to deal with the mother. Even now, they've expressed to my uncle, even to my father, my sister has expressed, because they have weird on and off relationships. Sometimes they go for months without talking, and all of a sudden they just pop up. All of them. Except for me, I'm the one that's consistent. She's even telling my father, I feel that I need my independence. I feel that our mother has done something to us. But here's something else that she also said. She said, I'm miserable. My sister, regarding the situation. It's like, I feel I don't know what to do. I'm not going to stop, going for him and, trying to get him back. Because I know he's miserable too. Classic narcissism. Again, I would not have known that prior to doing the research. I would have thought, oh really? Like she gets it. No. But again, it's not calculated. See, the thing is, you have to understand, because it's so complex. It's so deep that it's not like, oh, it's calculating that it's like she has to know that I'm there because she wants me to feel there. She wants me to feel it, but it's not from a place of like, it's a delayed onset, which means that she'll do what she does. The same way, like, they'll go months without speaking to my father, or like even for like the video that I whatever. I didn't send my sister, I sent to everyone else. So she sent my father, oh, it's funny how everyone saw the video and no one told me about it, like as if my father's involved. So like, you know, and like they'll go months and she won't even speak to my father. And all of a sudden it'll be like, so very, because the mother is very controlling, the mother. So it's a delayed onset. Because remember, they're fighting because we grew up in a family household where we had a lot of cousins, a lot of family, you know, Caribbean family, whatever. So there was a lot of resistance to the mother's personality. She didn't have a way to just constantly, you know, give it that narcissistic abuse. You know what I'm saying? She couldn't like spin her webs because my father was always there to be like, hey, you need to calm down, woman. You see what I'm saying to you? Let's go on.
I think all these distinctions, as I said, there were teething problems. You know, the whole field started in the mid-90s. Yeah. I mean, there have been studies of narcissists, of course, dating back to 1915. Yeah. Freud coined the term narcissism in 1915, and then we had Kohut in 1974. Mm-hmm. But nothing serious. The first serious studies of narcissism started in the mid-80s and then later in the mid-90s. So it's a very new field. And narcissism is such a multifaceted phenomenon that labels proliferated. Including, I'm also guilty. I also contributed a few labels, like inverted narcissist, you know?
Right.
But it's all because we fail to see the underlying unity. It's exactly like I'm a physicist by training. It's exactly what happened in physics. You know, we had electricity, mm-hmm. we had magnetism, and then one day we discovered that electromagnetism is one and the same.
Right.
And then we united these with other forces like the weak force and the strong force and so on and so forth. So as a field ages and progresses, unity emerges. And I think ultimately we will discover there's only one type of narcissist.
Right.
Absolutely one. So there were two types of reaction. Some people began to split hairs, you know, and then you had inverted versus classic versus covert, somatic versus cerebral, and what have you.
Yeah.
And other people, and those were the analytically minded people. I'm an analytic type, so what I did, I began to split hairs. I said, well, there's somatic, there's cerebral, there's inverted, there's this, there's that. Mm-hmm. And many others did the same, of course, yes? And then there were the types who can't cope with, who are not analytic. They can't cope with complexity. So what they've done, they've reduced everything to a caricature.
Right.
Both the victim and the narcissist. So as far as they're concerned, it's all a cartoon, an unfolding cartoon animated film.
So it's the same thing within the MBTI community, where you have, you know, individuals who they'll provide cognitive function aspects and perspective and apply it to everyone. So we have someone like me who I label myself as a real-world INFJ because when I enter the forums, when I enter the INFJ forums, I don't see anyone who looks like me. Or sorry, I don't see who resembles my experiences because I've had so many different experiences. So when I want to speak on certain things, I'm met with an echo chamber of other people who have different. And sometimes when you go on Reddit and people are like, hey, let's talk about something else because I don't want to talk about only self-reflect, whatever. You'll have people who like, no, we need a place to heal. You know, no. So it's, you know, so it's very complicated in that way. So let's keep going.
Yeah, I've been guilty of a few of them. I used to say that narcissists will never apologize and they demonstrate no empathy, and both have been proven several times in the academic literature to be totally false.
But if you talk to victims or if you visit victim forums,
yes,
the first thing all these self-styled experts, self-appointed experts will tell you is that narcissists don't have empathy.
That's very important. Because again, I was doing a research and it's like everyone was like, oh no, they're nasty people, they're this, they're the classic types, they don't have any empathy, they don't know what it feels like to be me, you know, it's like they're just the meanest people in the world, they're cold-hearted. But then I'm like, I got the results, I saw the signs on the wall when it comes to these reactions, but these people, like, so that's why I made it more difficult, because it always made me come back to, oh no, they couldn't have done it. Like, it's not them. They're kids. They're sheltered. They don't know any better.
Yes.
And they're very proud of it. Like, they've, rediscovered the wheel. Narcissists don't have empathy, they tell everyone. And they don't bother to read. They don't bother to update themselves. They don't bother to and so they keep saying the same things. It's repetitive, it's misleading, and it's an echo chamber.
Yes.
In the last month alone, there have been studies that have demonstrated that narcissists actually do have empathy, but only for other narcissists.
Oh, really?
Then there have been studies, studies were published that supported my contention that narcissists and psychopaths actually do have a type of empathy, which I call cold empathy.
Yeah.
Did you ever stop to think about the following? If narcissists don't have empathy at all, if they do not understand what it means to be human, if they can't put themselves in your shoes, how can they ever exploit you?
Of course.
How can they ever abuse you? How can they ever push your buttons if they don't know where the buttons are, or even that you have buttons? So clearly, narcissists do have empathy. However, this empathy is emotionally deficient, and they use it only with their own kind, or in order to obtain certain benefits and advantages, like narcissistic supply, or in the case of psychopaths, money, sex, and so on.
Yeah.
He referred to the empathy of them only relating to other narcissists. But for me, like I said, I'm saying that it's a delayed onset. So they have it. They have all the qualifications of being a kind person, always having this, whatever like that, being nostalgic and enjoying everything. Because again, it's like a double sort of like a dual personality, right? Sort of in a way. Where it's like, yeah, like we enjoy this, the nostalgia, whatever. But then all of a sudden, like when they're in their mode, they'll get into that thing and they'll come here. Like, well, okay, again, come here and do something like that of not saying that that I'm here. I mean, again, you're so fond of my children. You do this, you do that. Again, send them money, send them this, send them that. Which I think that's why they're trying to get to me, because of my children. But I don't think it's calculated. That's why it's so complex. And so now they use money, they use this to get to my, because of them. For them, they grew up with a lot of money. Okay? I didn't grow up with them because I left. But they grew up with, my sister's wedding, expensive, keeping up with the Joneses, that and the third. Having every latest car, Mercedes-Benz, whatever, boom, boom. Everything paid for by the parents. Living in a home that's too expensive for them. Again, keeping up with the Joneses. That narcissistic supply. That's what mother keeps the children there with, the money. Living at the house, paying for their gas, all that stuff. Keeping them where they are. So that's why for me it's like it's a delayed onset, because they do these things, but they don't realize what they're doing it because of that sheltered, again, paired with that conditioning of their mother. This, or your father did that, or your brother did that. Don't trust them. He's fueling a fire. Dude, you know what I'm saying to you? So now let's talk about the echo chamber, which is one of the reasons why I actually made this video and was doing the research and why I was having such a hard time.
Victims inhabit an echo chamber. They rely on each other for guidance, but they essentially only reflect each other's feelings and concerns and so on. So they never exit this huge cave in which they are entombed. It's like Plato's cave.
Yes.
They are in this cave, and all they see is the shadows on the wall, and they assume this is reality. I've had nothing to do with it. I'm a victim.
Yeah.
I'm a victim. That's a classic definition of a victim. And here we come to the celebrated term, and magnet.
Yes.
Narcissist magnet. Magnets are objects.
Yes.
They don't have a mind of their own. They are acted upon. They're totally passive.
Yeah.
And they're never guilty. You cannot attribute responsibility to a magnet.
This is very important now. Again, I'm not sort of undermining, those who are seeking self-help and so forth and so on. That's not where I'm going with. The point that I'm making is that you have a lot of people who are online. They're in this echo chamber by where you go in there, people ask questions, and they're met with people who now provide their own self-reflect, their own perspective. Like, I did this, I did that, in order to now better relate to that individual. But at the end, they're not providing anything that's going to give that person guidance and say, hey, let's move forward, let's step up. They basically just waddle around. Let me give you a prime example. Someone who I follow as a fitness enthusiast, Jerry Ward of BioSC Training. He went online just as recently, a couple months ago. I forget what date, I think it was in March or even February. He went on forums, fitness forums, and he was amazed by what he saw. Same thing as what I have been complaining about when I go into these INFJ MBTI forums of people who are just all about self-help and really like not doing anything that's going to move forward. Listen.
Today I want to talk to you guys about the failure communities and what these things are now. There are companies out there, there are just, forums, Facebook pages, etc. I'm in a couple of them, some of my clients are in some of them. So I know what actually goes on in there. And the reason why I call them failure communities is they're actually set up, and some of them probably good intentions, but very quickly it goes south. What happens in these groups is, especially the closed Facebook groups, you get in there. Now, it's a support group for people who are trying to lose weight, dieting, fitness, support groups. To me, support would be, okay, listen, you know what? You did what you did. It's in the past. Forget about it. There's nothing you can do about it. Don't worry about it. Don't dwell on it. Today's a new day. Right now is a new second, a new minute, a new hour. Just concentrate on today, this meal, and then one meal at a time afterwards until you're in the swing of things and your groove, whatever the case may be. But regardless, you don't have to sit there and dwell on the past. That would be support to me. What happens in these groups is one person says, well, I messed up my diet. I did this, and this. I'm reading things and it's like they have eating disorders, poor association, poor relationships with food. I'm like, what the f***? And when they get together, all it does is make for a melting pot or a perfect storm of people to support one another's failures, as well as eating disorders and inappropriate relationships with food. So next thing you know, you have literally 20, 30, 40 people comparing notes on how bad they've been, thinking it's funny and cute and okay because everyone else, someone else ate a whole chocolate cake. This person only ate 3/4 of chocolate cake. So they think it's okay because the other person did worse. So what's happening is the other people are supporting the people's failures. I did this. Oh, well, that's cool. I did this. Ha ha ha. Imagine that. Wow, we just totally suck. Ha ha. There's no support going on. There's no trying to rally and get back on track. There's no trying to attain the goal that you're in there for the first place. There's only comparing notes about how bad you have been, and they consistently get worse. Once people realize it's okay to up and eat like 3 chocolate cakes and 2 gallons of milk in 3 hours and binge, and then everybody else does it in there, they can start going, well, I ate 4 bags of Doritos. Well, and I'm sitting there going, these are like out of control binges that people are doing in these groups. They think it's funny. They think it's cute. They think it's okay.
So you see what I'm saying to you? So again, like, it's not just MBTI, it's everywhere. And people don't realize how social media is playing a role in this.
For being attracted to another magnet. You cannot blame a magnet for moving in that direction or this direction. A magnet is a magnet is a magnet.
Yeah.
And magnet is the ultimate abdication of personal responsibility, of personal judgment. It's the suspension of one's moral agency.
Remember when I told you a story about how I went online and I was like, I saw someone, oh, you know, like, why do we collect lost or broken souls? How like INFJ is, you know, like, that's what he's basically talking about, the magnet. Like, oh, I attract broken souls, I attract narcissists, I attract whatever. And for me, I'm like, you're attracting these people, you have a responsibility. Not sit there and just attract them and not do anything for them. Because if you're a broken soul and you're attracting a broken soul, what happens? You have no responsibility? Listen.
This narrative, these words and the concepts that you're choosing to describe this with, even though it will be provoking to some people because they'll feel like they're having something precious to them being taken away, I would think this would be 100 times more effective in actually helping people to heal and get over it and move on with their lives than the other narratives that you see dominating the subject.
I must confess to having lost a lot of faith in people's wish to be healed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, they protest. You know, the lady protested. Yes, they protest volubly that all they want is to be healed and so on. But I think there's a lot of emotional reward in being in a permanent state of victimhood.
Okay.
You are the center of attention. You are the subject of commiseration.
Yes.
You are the recipient of compassion, and so on. It's very rewarding emotionally. I think victimhood is an addictive state. The majority of victims which interact with us online. I want to be very precise. As I said, this is a self-selecting subspecies of victim. It's not representative of the entire body of victims.
What you're saying basically is that most people who are victims don't come online and to give their information, give their, like someone like me, like they don't come online. They basically seek, you know, guidance to their friends, their relationships, their spouses, their family, and so forth. They don't come on here on forums. So those who are on forums are not representative of the vast majority of victims. That's why it's kind of hard to get a good perspective from the people who are online.
Of narcissists, which I believe is we are oblivious to, because they don't end up online. They end up consulting their friends and family or end up in therapy sessions, but very few of them end up online. Very few of them end up being exhibitionists, exposing their life for scrutiny and so on. Yeah. But yes, vast majority of these victims, from my experience, have what we call an external locus of control. Nice. External locus of control and alloplastic defenses, they go hand in hand. Nice. An external locus of control means I don't control my life. My life is controlled by some force from the outside. Mm-hmm. It's a form of learned helplessness, and it has emotional rewards. Victims would react ferociously, viciously, and ragefully if you challenge their victimhood.
Happens all the time. Whenever I go online, especially with these INFJ forums, even on Reddit, like, why are we talking about self-help? Why can't, we need a place to heal, go away, you don't understand, rah, 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 rah. Happens all the time. Other people post on Reddit and be like, hey, I get it, let's talk about something else, let's bring up other topics. Go away, we need a place to heal. You be the change that you want to see, but we need a place so that we can come and discuss our issues. It's tough. So now let's go on to talk about and to discuss the realities.
Just recently, I did go through
between the realities between. So now let's go on to discuss now the realities between.
I think 20.
Would react and
So now let's go on to discuss now the realities between what's online versus reality and how scientists of today, although new research is coming, like I said, it's relatively new. Since 1995, narcissism has just really started being studied, seriously, right? But scientists and scholars are sort of moving away from the online community because they're noticing that these people only want to see certain things from a particular point of view and not into actually learning the new studies, like what's happening. So that's why for me, I'm like, it's funny because all I'm seeing is this, but I'm seeing that there are other connecting factors that are contributing that's causing certain behaviors, but it's not all the way. Let's listen.
Just recently, I did go through, I think, 20 papers, and they're all papers not even particularly recent, they're from the last 10 years. And I was thinking, my God, the narrative that we have online regarding narcissism is drifting from the latest academic research hugely.
Yes, divergence, complete divergence, I agree.
Total divergence, and there's this almost an agenda online to keep it biblical, to keep it good versus evil, the war between God and the devil, and we don't want any complexity messing up that narrative.
So that's it. In 1995, it started off as a scientific endeavor. I started it off, at least, as a scientific endeavor. I tried to popularize some concepts in science, some scientific texts like the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. I tried to popularize it, and then I tried to provide myself as an example of a narcissist for purposes of closure. That's how it started. Yeah. And then it somehow got transformed, malignantly transformed, from science to mythology.
Yes.
And now it's mythology. Now it's 99% mythology. No one is interested to hear about the latest, nothing. There's no interest whatsoever. I can see it in the number on my channel. I try to, from time to time, introduce, the latest in research, and there's no interest whatsoever. If I post a video titled, "Narcissists are aliens," I get like 1 million views, and then if I post a video saying, latest in research, I would get 500 views. No one is interested. I think all this has become a cultural phenomenon. Cultural societal phenomenon, which has nothing to do, or very little to do, with clinical diagnostic categories. I think that's precisely why universities, professors, research labs are distancing themselves from narcissism forums and so on online.
Right.
I corresponded with many academics, and I proposed to them to provide them with access to my list and so on, and they were very reluctant. I think they feel that narcissism online is adulterated. So I think we're going to continue to see this cultural, societal phenomena. I think it is at its beginning. There's a whole cottage industry, you and I know best. There's a whole cottage industry around it. It's going to grow. And many people are going to enter the field, many more are going to enter the field, and they are going to contaminate it even further. Or you know what, let's not use the word contaminate, because it's a value judgment. They're going to move it apart from the clinical setting even further. And I think it's going to end up as a cultural social phenomenon. On the other hand, in universities, research labs, and the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual committees, and ICD now is being rewritten, and so on, in more academic settings, narcissism for the first time is going to be investigated thoroughly and properly. And they are going to come with very surprising insights, surprising to most people. Right. I don't want to sound boastful, but at this stage I haven't been surprised. They failed to surprise me. Yeah. Perhaps because I have a privileged insight into narcissism, being a narcissist myself. Yeah.
So there you have it. That's what I've been researching. I know it's been a long video. I said it wasn't going to be long, and it's just no way to like not, explain all of this, and I don't feel that I sort of revealed my life, and opened it up for scrutiny, because again, like I said, it's one of those things where I didn't provide any names. I don't talk about my family. I don't discuss certain things. I don't put my family's photos or images online. No one, it's not even my real name. You see what I'm saying to you? So I double down, triple down on my name. So you're not going to be able to really find, who I am. So it's just one of those things, that's what I've been going through. So now you know, right? And for me, I can't really say how this is going to go and move forward. All I know is that I'm maintaining my sanity and I'm self-healing. This is my way of self-medicating, by just being apart. Don't know for how long it's going to be. And I'm not really interested in anyone telling me, oh, you need to, because I've always been the one to say I'm sorry. Always be the one to say I'm sorry. Always the one just to slam, and then not even slam, but not slam the door. Always keep the door open and then say, hey, I'm sorry, let's make up. This time I've decided for my own sanity, I can't do it, because no one's concerned about my well-being. No one's concerned about what I've been going through, whether or not I suffer from some kind of psychological disorder that may, reveal itself later on down the line. I don't know. So until then, again, like I said, I don't keep track of this channel. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day or evening to spend with me. And like I said, this is the real INFJ perspective. You're not going to get this from a lot of places. So if you want to contact me, go ahead and do so. info@boothridertv.com. Johnny Fontana, Real World INFJ. We out.